Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for checking out the channel. Today we're going to be comparing two different systems, my tried and true Sony FX30, and then the second system is something that everyone has some variant of, and that is your mobile phone. In this case, it's the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now, I chose the iPhone 16 Pro Max because since the iPhone 15 Pro Max, we've been able to shoot internal log at 10-bit 422, which is, kind of tech speak for very good. When you shoot on a logarithmic curve, you get a lot more dynamic range. You're utilizing the full dynamic range of the sensor. If none of that makes sense, don't worry. There's a lot of good YouTube videos where people do a much better job explaining it than I'm doing right now. But essentially that's, in a way, you're at least having the chance or the possibility of matching your iPhone with professional workflow cameras. If it records in log, essentially you have that capability in post to color grade them similarly enough. We're going to be trying to do some of that. We're going to be trying to match iPhone footage to FX30 footage, to some Blackmagic footage, and we're going to see how the iPhone holds up.
Okay, so first we have the shot of this train here. I had to crop in slightly on the iPhone to try to get the frames to match. It basically next to impossible, but did the best I could. Looking at the log image, which is the flat image, this on the iPhone I recorded using the native iPhone app. Later I'll be talking about the free awesome Blackmagic Camera App, but right now let's just focus on this. Looking at these here, there's definitely more detail in the Sony. With YouTube compression, you very well probably won't notice that, but both are acceptable. Of course, this is just a flat image and we won't really know what we have until we start grading, putting a LUT on, and just really seeing how much range we have to work with. Okay, so looking at both of these images, what I did was I applied a Rec709 conversion. Rec709 is your standard gamma color space, and what that means is essentially your televisions, your computer monitors, your laptop monitor, your iPhone, anything that you're looking at is basically a Rec709 display. It's just the standard for viewing, and it's a pretty old format, and there's other formats like ASUS and other things that are coming along, high dynamic range formats, but for the purpose of this and because it's the most widely used, we're going to just stick with Rec709. What I used was a Colorspace transform, or CST, in DaVinci Resolve, just to essentially take your logarithmic footage, your log footage, and make it look closer to what you'd like in a final image, though I'm not pleased with either of these at the moment. Because the iPhone, I had no control over the exposure because I wasn't using the Blackmagic app. I was using the Apple default app. I think it exposed too dark, particularly when you're thinking about log footage. It's always a good idea to overexpose a stop and a half. Some say as much as 2 stops. I don't think that's necessary with modern cameras, but it's still a good idea because essentially you want to get your shadows as noise-free as possible. And, the more light you can give your sensor without clipping, without overexposing your highlights, the better, because you can dial all those settings back in post-production, and just gives you more room. Now I'm going to try to get these shots to match pretty close or somewhat close. We'll see how I can do, and then we'll check that out. Okay, so now looking at this comparison here, I think I was able to get the colors pretty close to matching. If I spent more time on it, I could definitely get it damn near 100%. Just so far looking at this and the way that it's handled the grade, obviously it doesn't have the latitude, the dynamic range, the color space, the color fidelity, maybe is a better way to put it, of the Sony, and I didn't expect it to. But I think it's pretty much B-roll quality decent, usable, borderline usable. In a pinch, I think you could do your B-roll on this, which is pretty cool. I don't think there's been an iPhone before that I could honestly say that about. I thought you guys might be getting tired of looking at my ugly mug, so this is the beautiful and talented Caroline Lassiter. Anyway, these are some shots taken inside, and this is the Blackmagic full frame. Here is the Sony FX30, and then lastly, here is the iPhone. So, major differences, obviously, depth of field stands out. I know there's aftermarket adapters, things like that you can buy to try to simulate more of a proper, cinema type lens. I was basically shooting this with the stock 24mm main camera lens on the iPhone. So this scene basically is trying to judge highlight roll-off, which is a major tell when you're talking about the capability of a sensor and the dynamic range of a sensor. And in that regard, I think it does pretty well. I mean, this is like weird, but in this example, actually the Blackmagic looks the most stark as far as not doing the best with the highlights, but honestly, it's raw and there's so much room to play with it. So, it's not a fair comparison for Blackmagic, but yeah, just kind of a base idea here. You can tell still, though. I mean, just again, there's still this overall sharpness to the iPhone that it's kind of digitally looking, if that's a word. And for close up, this kind of stuff, yeah, there's a little bit of depth of field as you can see there, but I think we're way far behind, compared to our previous shot. We were looking at a wide kind of B-roll shot here for like a hero close-up. Yeah, I'd say we still have some room to go. So one of the major tests of any system is how good it is at capturing accurate skin tones. And right here we can see, selecting the shadow side of the face, it's right where we want. The skin tones are falling exactly where we want them. That's pretty impressive. So this footage, I used the free Blackmagic app instead of the Apple app on the iPhone. Two huge advantages that the Blackmagic app has over the stock iPhone app is you can lock in your white balance so that it won't fluctuate in the middle of a take. If the light suddenly changes, the white balance will remain the same. And the same thing with your shutter speed or shutter angle. You can lock it in for a much more natural, consistent motion blur. If you guys have questions about what any of that means, leave it in the comments and I'll answer in more detail. But essentially, it's just kind of basic camera functionality and what separates a professional camera from a point and shoot, consumer level camera. And speaking about good looking models, here's my dog Cooley. Here we can see a low light example paired up with the FX30 again. It looks like there's quite a bit of internal noise reduction going on, even with the Blackmagic app. So it's not bad. It just gets a little bit, a little bit kind of blotchy looking. Here we have some end of the day magic hour B-roll. You can see here when the car passes that we're definitely, because they don't have an ND filter on, we're seeing that very jittery motion blur. But other than that, it looks pretty good. I will say, I think that the colors overall are a little lackluster. You really have to push them, and then they kind of start to fall apart. So that's even the Apple non-log stock colors seem a bit washed out to me. And here we have some HFR, high frame rate, 120 frames per second. Actually looks pretty darn good. It doesn't shoot in log mode, so we're just using the standard Apple color profile, but it doesn't actually look bad at all. It's pretty clean, and yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Okay guys, so that sums up the test. That wraps it up. My conclusion, my thoughts are that the iPhone 16 Pro Max is, you actually have functional, usable B-roll footage. The ability to shoot log, to color match it to other systems, really is kind of a big deal. I mean, that's a huge step. That's a professional codec. Now, professional specs, professional readout sheets, codecs, all that, that all sounds really good, but when you get under the hood, you can see some limitations too. Yeah, I mean, an iPhone's still not at this point going to compete with a more professional level camera. However, who knows? I mean, if you had asked anyone 5 years ago, would this even be possible? They'd probably say no. So it's an exciting time to be a filmmaker. If all you have in your pocket is your cell phone, you got something. You got something a heck of a lot better than nothing. I shot my first feature on a DVX100A. For those of you that remember that camera, it's a standard definition video camera. The iPhone smokes it. It's night and day, 1,000 times better. So if it's the only tool you have, I encourage you, don't let your lack of a fancy camera hold you back. Get out there, start shooting. If you have an older iPhone, you're considering upgrading, I would suggest doing it if you're really into film and video and trying to get the most out of your image as possible. Even if you don't like log mode, because naturally it's going to look very flat. It's not going to be pretty until you color grade it. Literally, it's footage designed to be graded in post. That's why it looks, so washed out. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's what gives us that amazing dynamic range and enables us to match other systems. An amazingly powerful tool that's always in your pocket. That's super neat. And it really is functional in a professional sense in certain situations. Okay, guys. Well, that's all. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.